Hey everybody, it's Stacy here from Sacred Art and Story, and today I thought I would talk a little bit about making envelopes. I know there's a lot of information out there, but it kind of confused me when I started trying to figure out how to do it. There were different measurements and different ways to do it, different tools, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole with it to simplify it because art shouldn't be something that you have to spend a lot of time trying to do math around. And I just kind of wanted to simplify the whole process. So I will show you kind of what I do. I've even got a cheat sheet for you that you'll find in the information below. There's a link that you can get to. But let me show you kind of how it works and maybe an easy way to think about it. And then you can start making cards and sending them out and having fun with it without having to get like hung up on it all. All right, so let's get to it. Okay, so these are the little cards that I have been making this year for some friends for the solstice and the holiday. And I did a little video on this a couple days ago, actually, where I talked about how I was making them, but also really why I was making them. And this whole idea of just kind of this need, I think, for us to be sending more love to people and, maybe making people's day by sending some cards for no reason whatsoever. But of course, when we start making cards, we need envelopes. So this is actually a 5 by 5 square. And it's on a pretty solid cardstock, watercolor cardstock. When you send square things through the mail, just know that there's going to be a little extra cost. It's because it's, not going through the normal machinery, like that's all built for more rectangular stuff. So just kind of be aware of that. But the other thing is because I wanted sort of a matchy, cute little package, and there'll be like another little piece in here. I made the envelope out of this really heavy cardstock as well. And I had read something a while back where there's sort of a regulation around like how stiff of mail you can send through. And I think it's the machinery. So if it's too rigid, then they have some issue with it. So I did go to the post office the other day and I took all of this and I just double checked, like, is this okay? And I did get the blessing. I got the A-okay. So I ended up getting the postage because it was a little bit more. And these little guys are ready to go. So they're super cute, little package, to give to my friends, which I think they will love. Um, but the whole process around kind of making cards, I sort of feel like it can get really confusing. So there's actually kind of a simple way to do this. The simplest way is to take the card that you have and simply kind of fold it. So the way that you kind of figure out your paper, and your paper is always going to be a square, but the way that you figure that out is you take your ruler and move that out of the way, and you measure your diagonal. So this is uh 7 inches diagonally. This little card is a pretty standard card size. It's the A2 size. So if you're just folding it, then what you want to do is you've got a 7-inch diagonal. You're going to add an inch to know what your paper size is. So you want an 8 by 8 piece of paper. So this is my 8 by 8 piece of paper. And all you're going to do is simply turn it diagonally. So you've got a diamond. And then you'll come in here and you'll kind of situate this in the center. And you're really kind of aiming for two more things here. So if you kind of do this side, corner to corner, you're sort of looking for the center of your card. And some days I'm like really great at this, and some days I really suck at it, and I just can't seem to kind of get it. So I'll talk about that in a second. But you get your card little, situated here, and then you just come and you fold this over. So you're going to fold it up to your card. And this works great. Like if you've got odd size things that maybe you've made. And I'm going to come and I'm going to do this. See, but look, I am off. And my brain was like, hey, that's totally, even. So you're shooting for something that looks more like this, so before you really nail everything down, you can kind of even it up. Because I've sort of already started, I'm just going to show you like why I've switched to a different model. But you would fold these over and then you do the exact same thing like here. I'm going to come in and I'm going to fold the bottom up and then I'm going to fold the top down. In a perfect world, everything would line up. In my world, it very rarely does, right? It just doesn't. So I've kind of switched the game plan, but this would be how it would work. You would then fold these two over, and this guy would get folded up, and then you've got your envelope, right? There's some little edges here that we would kind of get rid of, but like this is really the same thing. This is an A2 little diagram. This gets folded, this gets folded, this gets folded up, and this gets folded down. What you would do is these little extras right here, sort of where your folds come across and you get these little triangles here, especially on the top, you kind of want to get rid of these because otherwise you've got this and you've got this, and it just looks kind of messy. So you would actually come in each of these triangles right here. You're just gonna snip them off, snip them out. So you gotta have some scissors. And I do all four. Some people just do the top, but I do all so that all of my little corners are nice and pretty. And I'm just following my fold lines here. That's all this is. More or less anyway. So then I end up with this kind of a thing. And then I would come in and I fold, and then I've got a nice clean edge here. Right? There's no fold over anymore. And then all I would need to do, really, if this was all lined up, is I would come in and I would glue this bottom piece and glue it up there. And then I could, cut this and do whatever. Because I am fold challenged, clearly, like this is not something that I would ever send out. It's so screwball. But because this happens to me all the time, I finally switched over and I got a little tool here. So this is a scoring board, and it came with this attachment, which is the little envelope attachment. So it gives me a way to much more easily figure out where my folds are supposed to go so that everything lines up. Like, see this little card, it's all like perfect and lined up, and I didn't have to fiddle with it. And because, I'm not refolding and refolding, I don't have a mess, on the other side with a bunch of fold lines. So this for me works, but it does take a little bit of math, which is why I've created a cheat sheet. And there's a link for you in the description where you can get to this. But this is my little cheat sheet with like, this is the size envelope. And this is where your score marks would go so that I don't have to think about it anymore, which is kind of my goal here. I don't really want to have to be doing math. I just want to kind of be having fun and make it simple. So you can kind of check this out if you have it. It's for your scoreboard. So if you don't have one, then you would do it the foldy way, like what I just showed you, and you would get better than me for sure. But if you do have one of these, it comes in pretty handy. So I'm going to show you how to do a square. On my little cheat sheet, there's some pretty standard envelope sizes because, everything that goes through the mail kind of has a standard size and they're all, mostly rectangles. Um, so there's sort of a standard A2, A6 kind of thing. So this, of course, is a little A2 size, which I think if I'm making cards in the future, this is what I'm going to do just to simplify it so that I can just do standard postage. It's the A2 size piece of paper and folding, and it'll just be easy and uniform. This regular card that you get is an A6. And it's basically, I can't remember exactly the dimensions of it. Um, it's basically sort of like I don't know, like a card that's about, I don't even know. I can't even remember, but it's like a, little over four. I could just measure it. It's a little over four, it's like, 4 3/4 ish by five and or like 6 3/4, something like that. Um, you can tell math is just not my thing. Um, but it's an A6 and it works if you use my little cheat sheet, on here, but you could also totally just come in and fold it. So to fold it, I'm going to measure my diagonal, right? And that's about 8 1/4, eight, yeah, 8 1/4. So I did a 9 1/4. I added 1 inch to my little paper here. So I've got a 9 1/4 by 9 1/4 square. I lined it up. It is a little bigger than sort of a regular card because it's got this funny thing attached. So it is a little bit bigger. So it kind of worked here. And I just lined it up and then I folded it. And this one I folded better than my other one. So then I had like a really easy little envelope. Again, I would come in and I would cut these, but that's how it works. And for here, I could cut this across, I could round it, I could leave it, I could do, whatever. And all I would need to do is come in and glue the bottom and do that. And then I've got a little envelope for that, like easy breezy. But I could also come in and do it this way. So I'm going to show you kind of how this works, but I'm going to use my little square because that's the other thing. All of the dimensions out there are for rectangular standard card envelopes. And so if you want a square, then you have to kind of do the math and do the change. And I did that already. So on my little cheat sheet, I've got what the score dimensions are for a 5 inch card, for like a 6 inch card. So there's, again, no thinking involved. So this little card, as I said, was 5 by 5. And again, it's 7 inches. So I knew that it was going to basically be sort of like the same size envelope as this, but I just needed it not quite as wide and a little bit taller. So did the math, and I am still going to use the same paper size that I would use for this, which is an 8 1/2 by 8 1/2 piece of paper. So it's always going to start as a square. And then I'm going to use my little measurements, which is basically what I want, which is like 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 is where my little score marks are going to be, which will give me the perfect size. So the way that this little tool works is I'm just going to get one piece of paper as you line this up this way. If you had a bigger piece of paper and you were doing a bigger card, like this card needs a bigger piece of paper, it's like a 9 by 9, you would bring this down until that lines up. So for instance, this doesn't meet there. So I come down until my two corners are right on the edge. Because what this is measuring is this. So this 3-inch mark is this 3-inch mark. So we're kind of measuring the width, but we're doing it on a diagonal. So if you've got a bigger piece of paper than your little tool, or if you just kind of want to do it by hand without this thing, you would just kind of go from corner to corner and find your measurements. There's always sort of an A and a B if you're doing a triangle, because A is your height, B is your width, and you want it longer than high. But if you're doing a square, it's all going to be the same. So my little square is going to be, we're going to mark it at 3 1/4. So I line this up and then I bring in my little tool and I come in and I find 3 1/4 here, which is the exact same as 3 1/4 here. And then I'm going to score it. So I come in and I do my little score. It may be hard to see, but there is a little scoring mark that's coming in here. And you just have to kind of be careful if you're using one of these because you can push too hard and it'll, break the paper. And then I turn it and I do the exact same thing. If I was doing a more rectangular one, this would be A, and then this would be B, and then I would do A and B. So they would be, one would be a little bit bigger, longer. It might be 3 3/4 or something like that. But we're going to do 3 1/4 everywhere we go on this little quickie tool to know then that my lines are going to finally be like straight and my corners are going to be right so that everything hopefully matches. So I have all 4 of my lines, and I'm just going to draw something here. So these are where my little crossovers are, right on the edge. And this would be what I am going to cut. So right where all these little folds are, so that's my fold line. I'm coming down and I want to clip these little guys out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then I come in and I just fold along my lines. So I come in and this fits perfectly. It's, bigger than my actual card. But if I wanted to put something else in or have a little bit of leeway, if there's a thickness to it, I'm good. So it works. And then I would come and I would put these two over each other. So I had that. There's a little, flop over. And then I would bring this up and it all matches perfectly. Right. And then of course, this is the top that comes down. So on this one, I don't really need to. I could kind of, bring in a little curved, punch and kind of make that pretty, but I'm just kind of leaving it. And really all I need to do is glue this bottom part. I do kind of come in because there is a crossover. I'll come in and glue this piece down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can use glue, you can use like double-sided sticky tape. That's actually what I did for the heavier stuff because I just was a little concerned, that that was gonna pop open. But then I just come down and I glue this bottom right around the edge, and that's it. So kind of no math is needed at this point in my life when it comes to this, which makes me very, very happy. Because I really have done the little cheat sheet, and I'm not gonna lie, Chat GPT actually helped me do my cheat sheet. But there's my little envelope. And if I was doing something where I had like a double-sided, where maybe it was white on one side and something, on the inside, then it would look like there was almost like a lining or something in there. So you can do all kinds of cute little things, but make it super easy. So grab the cheat sheet if you want. It goes through standard rectangular sizes and what like the folded dimension is, what kind of card would fit in there, and then where you do your score marks. And then I also did it for some squares. So if you have a square that's about 5.5 inches, mine was 5, but you could go up to 5.5. You would do exactly what I just did. You've got an 8.5 inch square of paper, and you do 3.25 scores everywhere. You fold it all in, and you're good to go. If you've got something that's a 6 inch square, you would just go to this next one. So I love my little cheat sheet. It actually kind of just makes it super quick and super easy. And that's how it should be, right? So anyway, I hope that this kind of helps and just simplifies things a little bit. Like two ways to do it. Just fold the paper over what you got. Or if you are fold challenged and you want something more precise, grab one of these little boards. I think they're like 20 bucks, but it just kind of saved my like frame of mind, so it helps. But go make some cards, send some cards, and have some fun making envelopes.